Today we're going to talk a little bit about how fast the world is changing. So many things going on right now, and you really need to be aware of how to handle them when it comes to your marketing and pivoting your messaging and making sure your business is responding the right way. So we're going to have a really in-depth conversation about that today. Before we get into the nuts and bolts, we've got a couple of exciting things to tell you about going on with our agency. One is our video studio day, which is our most affordable way to make professional video. It's designed for small business owners who need video content but can't pay for a full high production shoot at their office. We have one coming up August 6th. We're going to tell you a lot more about that at the end of our webinar today. And then also our world famous social media boot camp is coming up in August. We teach this class 3 times a year. We've done it for
10 years.
10 years now. Yeah. And it sells out every time. This is the first time we're going to be doing it virtually. We've always done it in person at one of our 4 offices, and now we're going to be doing it online so that all our friends across the country can join us. So those classes are coming up Fridays in August, and again, we'll give you a lot more information at the end of our webinar. So nuts and bolts for today. In addition to Stephen and I, our executive assistant, Savannah Jordan, has joined us. You won't see her picture, but you'll see her box up there. And Savannah's going to be monitoring your questions throughout the webinar. We really want this to be a live Q&A interactive session. So if you have questions for us, just put them in the Q&A box that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. Not the chat box, but the one that actually says Q&A. And Savannah will be monitoring those and will throw them out to us as necessary, and we'll do our best to answer them for you. And then also, you'll get a copy of this webinar after our session today and be able to share it with anyone you think could benefit from the information. So thanks for spending your lunchtime with us, and let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
I think when we were talking about how to prepare for the webinar and what we wanted business owners to know during this changing time, it really comes down to agility for marketers. This is not the time where you made a strategy at the beginning of the year or even at the beginning of the month and you're just going to run with it, because things are changing too fast in our society. Whether we're talking about COVID-19 and all the openings and then reclosings and then reopenings and all of that that's been going on across our country, or even things like Black Lives Matter and the messaging that's come out on social media, especially around all of that. And also things like certain advertisers are boycotting Facebook because they want Facebook to be more strenuous in making sure diversity is represented there and that hate speech is kept off the platform. So there's a lot of major brands that are not advertising during the month of July, and it's important to know how your company is going to participate or not in that. So all of these things that are happening have really caused us to pivot very quickly multiple times for our clients. And I think what we've learned is when the world is changing this fast, you have to be kind of quick on your feet. You have to be an agile marketer. You have to be able to pivot and change and test and tweak things all the time. And that's part of most marketing strategies anyway, but rarely does it come into play daily or weekly like those changes are now. And so we wanted to give you a couple of tips. I think the first is good rule of thumb always, but especially now, make sure your customers come first. When you're thinking about the messaging and the stuff you want to put out there and the type of content you're posting, the frequency of content, think about what your target audience is going through right now. You know, in COVID-19, different businesses are at different levels of pain during all of this. Some of us are doing okay during it. Some of us are really struggling. Some of us have closed our doors and don't know what that looks like from here. But try not to think so much about where you are in the cycle. Think about where your customers are. What are the people you serve experiencing during all of this? Are they back at work? Are they sitting at home? Are they not living life the way they want to? Or can they still use your product the way they always have, or your service? Those are the things to really put into place when you're thinking about your marketing. Really speak to the needs of those people, because during this time, it's not really as much about how do I promote my services or how do I look at the features and benefits that we offer, or the thing that makes us different from our competitors. The winners in this environment really come down to who can speak to the pain points of their audience the clearest. So it can't be about you anymore. It's got to be about them and what they need from you and how you can help them. And again, we're always taught that as marketers, right? But I think sometimes we fall into this trap where we have a new product to promote or something we're launching, or we do a features and benefits analysis and we want to just push all that information out there. And in typical times, that's good stuff. But in this environment, it's really important to only talk about that stuff as it relates to where your customer is and really meet them where they are right now. So I think that's probably tip number one for agile marketing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also think that you have to really be driven by data, right? You need to look at what is the data saying. And the thing is whatever you knew about your data before, March, is probably changed. Basically, overnight, consumer buying behavior changed, right? Everyone was forced to go home, right? And stay home and be home. And that's obvious for how that might impact a retail store or a restaurant, right? The buying behavior is going to be very, very different there. But even, so B2C, that's fairly clear. But even if you're talking about B2B, if a business owner is likely going to be working from home too, right? And so their buying behaviors and how they're exploring, they're not able to go out and meet someone. They're not able to, have that networking event and be introduced to someone. And so they're going online as well, and having to do a lot of stuff there. So really looking at the data and seeing what's happened. Another thing that we're seeing with data is that, when all this started happening, and even still, all of search traffic, basically for everything except like things related to coronavirus and COVID-19 dropped, right? So a lot of search traffic dropped off. And that has remained, but it's starting to pick back up. And we're starting to see some pockets of stuff where it's even exceeded what it was before. And so looking at that data is really important. And so what we're seeing really is that you have to look at that, and you have to look at it quickly because it's changing very quickly right now. And so what was taking 6 months to a year for some data to change and adjust is happening every month now. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not looking at that, if you don't have a good way to get that data about your business and about what's happening in marketing and all that kind of stuff, then you're not going to be able to make quality decisions and be able to pivot accordingly. So that's kind of like a second pretty important thing.
Well, let's talk about what kind of data we're talking about. Yeah. When you want to look at the numbers of your business and figure out what your audience is doing during this time, you're going to look at website traffic. As Stephen talked about, traffic from search has likely gone down at the beginning of all of this. It may be starting to rebound in your industry right now. Traffic from advertising can be even higher than normal now because the advertising landscape has changed. Mm-hmm. Right? At first, a lot of companies pulled back on their marketing. So there was kind of this vacuum where if you still had the budget to market, still had the product or service to promote, you were out ahead. You got better reach, better engagement. We saw a lot of really good traction, starting to even out a little bit. But that boycott of Facebook that we talked about a few minutes ago, a lot of big brands pulling out of all Facebook advertising for this entire month. That means that reaching your target audience may be in some ways easier, right? There is not as much traffic and not as much crowd out there to compete with. And so nuts and bolts wise, it could be a very good time to advertise if you have messaging that's in line with what's going on in this time. So website traffic coming from different sources. I think also another thing to look at is time on your website and path through your website. So if you don't know how to read your Google Analytics and understand how people are using your website, please call us because we are happy to help you. We have a free website audit. We're happy to walk you through that because in this particular time, in order to market effectively, every business owner needs to understand how to read that data and what it's telling them about customer behavior. One of the big things that we've realized, through all of this is your website has become more important than even we thought it would be, right? Than anyone knew it would be. Because suddenly, overnight, everyone's shopping online. Everyone's looking for products and services online. Everyone's engaging with businesses online rather than trade shows and conferences and networking meetings. Everything went online in the blink of an eye. So if you have a website for your business that doesn't represent you properly or doesn't function the way you wanted it to, don't wait. Now is the time to make edits, whether it's refreshing your current website, building a new website. You don't want to go through the rest of this period with a website that doesn't work effectively for your business, meaning can it generate leads and sales for your business? Can it convert visitors into people who will call you to have a further discussion? And time on site is a big indicator of that. How long are people staying? Are you having tons of traffic, but they stay 10 seconds and leave? Website's not working for you. Are they clicking all around and spending lots of time, but never getting to the contact page, never filling out a form? Not working for you. You need to be able to manipulate that behavior, because right now, online behavior is the crux of what we've got when we're communicating with our audience. I think another thing that has become increasingly important that most business owners didn't think about before now, or many of them didn't, is email marketing. Building an email list of your customers. Most of us think, well, we communicate with our customers through social media, we communicate with them on our website, they engage with us, maybe they call us, but it has become more important than ever to actually have collected email addresses from your customers, your past customers, your potential customers, because that is the most direct way to communicate in these times. So if you're not a business that's regularly collecting that information, please find a way to do so, whether it's an extra, email is an extra line to fill out on the contact form, or whether you put a downloadable on your website, like a checklist or an ebook or a white paper or something that people can give you their email to download. What we're seeing with our clients is the companies that have robust email lists ahead of this have fared a lot better through it. And I think, it's easy to say, well, crud, now we're 4 months in, but I don't think it's going away, right? This, what do they say, the new normal? This is the way things are, and it's going to be a long time before things go back to the way they were. So it's not too late to put some of these things in place. Make sure your website's effective. Start collecting email addresses, and then really start looking at your messaging and figure out how to speak to your customer where they are right now, the pain points.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. And lead with the most important information first, right? If you're a business that people, like a retail or restaurant business, make sure that you're regularly updating hours and how to interact with you and how to buy from you, and put that first, and put when you updated it. So if you updated it today, put updated as of today's date, right? That's probably less important if you're not like a retail oriented business, but it's also important to keep your clients or customers updated with how you're doing business. What does that look like? I know that we're all working from home, but otherwise it's business as usual, right? And we just turned all in-person meetings into Zoom meetings, right? And so, but communicating that is really important, and not only getting those email addresses, but segmenting them out into where they came from, who are they, so you can easily grab a list of here's your current customers or your current clients, and shoot an email out to them if there's something soon that happens, or quick that happens, you need to communicate with them soon. And I think that's, like we're talking about being agile, like having that information, that data, and the ability to communicate quickly is more important than ever, because you never know what's going to happen next week or the week after that, or you're going to need to communicate something. And I think we've all learned over the last 4 months that things change quickly, and they'll likely change again. And if you don't have access to that type of information, then it's likely going to cause issues for you or your business.
Yeah, even something as simple as having a bar on your website that has your COVID-19 update, whether it's hours update or how you're serving your clients, or a lot of our clients that have pivoted into safety products or health products. We've featured those in a bar. So put the most important information, like you're saying, Stephen, up front and easily identify, because we have these little things in our head that key into certain words. And right now, people are still all about COVID, right? It's what we're talking about every day. How many networking meetings have you guys had? And the first update is, how's everybody doing? Are you ready to go back to work? What's it like being stuck at home? I thought 4 months in, we wouldn't be talking about that anymore, but we are every day, all day. And so make sure the website isn't a different form of communication. It's just written instead of verbal. When you go to the website, that information needs to be front and center. How are you pivoting during this time with your business model? All right, you ready to answer some questions?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, Savannah, if you have any questions, we'll take a break and answer some. And if not, we can pontificate some more.
Well, no need to pontificate. We've got several questions here. So
Okay.
the first one says, in this environment, the news is changing constantly. Should I be changing my strategy as the environment changes or staying the course? Also, at what point do you know whether your business should be responding to the things going on in the world? For example, Black Lives Matter, Facebook ads boycott, etc.
Yeah. So, okay, the first part is easy. Yes, you should be changing your strategy and you need to do it frequently. At this point, I would not plan any kind of content more than a week or two out. Some businesses, we don't do this at our agency, but I know some businesses plan a month of content at a time and they get it all scheduled and everything's good and then it's off your plate, right? I understand why you do that. That's a bad idea right now because one of the things is when something like Black Lives Matters comes up. Remember a few weeks ago when we had Blackout Tuesday, where that was the day where no one was going to post on social media to call attention to the BLM movement and to really make space for those messages on social media. Well, if you had scheduled regular content and forgot it was scheduled and maybe it wasn't in line with that, that could have backlash on your business, right? And so I think it's really important to not plan too far ahead because you don't want to seem insensitive or tone deaf if you just forget to check what's going out. You know, sometimes we make crisis management plans for our clients, and the first thing in a crisis management plan is check all outbound communications. What blogs are set to be posted? What social media is set to go out? What email is scheduled to go out? Sometimes once we've taken care of those things, we forget that they're going to go. And in this climate, that's really, really dangerous. You have to stay on top of it. We're not planning more further out for our clients than a couple of days right now. Really, we're planning just a couple of days. Maybe you can get away with a week. In some industries, a couple weeks might be okay, but be prepared to pull back and pivot quickly if something big happens.
Yeah, I think that, I agree, obviously.
Okay.
I think, having a longer term, strategy, it's not like you can't even have like a year long or 6 month. We're looking at 3 months and then everything in there is just, pivoting within that. So you've kind of got the end goal. Obviously we've got a goal in mind, but within that we're pivoting on a regular basis depending on how that messaging looks and sort of what people are how people are responding to that.
Well, and I think even the goals have changed in most cases, right? The things, how many of us had a plan at the beginning of the year for our business, right? The goals we were going to reach, the initiatives we were going to push. And some of that is out the window in this new climate. And so marketing is no different. You have to change the messaging accordingly.
And I think that another piece of this too is knowing when to change it. And so you sort of really have to be on top of what's happening, because if you're not on top of the news, like she said, there's a regularly scheduled content or ads or something going on, and you didn't realize in those 2 or 3 days before Blackout Tuesday that Blackout Tuesday was going to happen, and all of a sudden you're just posting as if like normal business, that's going to make you look really bad on that day when that happened, because while everyone is not posting in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, if you are, then even if you didn't know about it, it's still your responsibility to know about it. And even with the Facebook, the Facebook boycott of ads, that should at least be a discussion to say, is this something that we should be continuing? Should we be running ads on Facebook in the month of July? And is it, or should we try to participate in this? And how, if we decide to participate in it, is this something we want to talk about publicly? How do we want to talk to our customers about it? Those types of things.
Well, I think that's the second part of the question, and a really important part. How do you know whether to participate in these things and speak out, right? And there's no cut and dry answer. I can't give you the checklist.
Yeah.
But we can tell you sort of the things that we think about for our clients and the discussions we've been having with our clients. Sometimes the best intentions bite you, right? Because you cannot predict always the way people will take those intentions. I'm going to tell you a story. We have a law firm client, nicest people in the world, and the attorneys, who happen to be white, really care about Black Lives Matter. They care about the movement. They wanted to support it. And they came out immediately and said, okay, all this is happening. We're going to put out a statement, saying how much we support diversity and we're behind it, and that's important to us to take a stand. And so without a lot of discussion, which was ill-advised. They didn't listen to the let's discuss this first part. They went ahead and did that. And what happened was people on social media said, oh, great, tell us how many diversities are represented in your workforce. How many Black people do you have on staff? How many different ethnicities are there? And the problem is there wasn't a lot of diversity represented, not because they didn't believe in it, but just happenstance, right? And that ended up really hurting them. And so they were trying to do the right thing. It was a no-brainer to them to get behind this movement because they believe in it. But it ended up being the tables were turned. And I think that's one of the most important lessons for me is that there's so much emotion around this that you cannot predict how people will react even when your intentions are pure. So that's why I think having a partner, whether it's an agency like ours or other kinds of trusted advisors for your business, to just brainstorm with and say, let's pick this apart. What could go wrong here if we put this out? The other thing is, so that's put your money where your mouth is, right? If you're going to make a statement, make sure, do you have a diversity policy on your website? Do you have diversity represented in your ranks in your company? Is there a policy in place for that and a protocol? Because you may be asked questions about it. I think the second thing from a marketing standpoint to consider is how are your customers going to feel about that? How is your customer base going to react to you taking what sometimes is seen as a political stance in your marketing? That's not just true of things like Black Lives Matter. We could talk about it with COVID too. Like, do you show pictures on your website that don't have masks on, right? Or in your social media content? I'll tell you another funny, not so funny story. When we did this webinar, we did a webinar like this at the beginning of COVID about, oh no, world is changing. How are we going to pivot? And it was Stephen and I doing the webinar. It works out well because we're in the same house, and so we can be on the webinar together. And we posted a picture of us like this to promote it. And people were really, really mean, saying, that's not 6 feet apart. You're not wearing masks. But we're married to each other. Yeah. But you don't know that because you don't know our names in the picture. So I get it. Yeah. But people were really quick to jump on us, even though the picture had been taken weeks ago. It wasn't a non-socially distanced picture, but it appeared that way. And so you really have to think through everything you're putting out there and how is it going to appear to your audience. I think now that we've worked from home for 4 months together, we might prefer 6 feet apart, but you pivot. So I think thinking through that, and then a lot of times how you feel personally as a business owner or professional is different than the personality of your company. And I think that's a really important distinction to make. You can take a stand as a person, and that doesn't necessarily mean the business takes a stand on some of these things. And for some companies, it may be right to do both. And for some companies, it's not. Sometimes it's better to keep that personal and keep it out of the business. And so I think those are really personal decisions. But again, get a trusted advisor, get a partner that you can brainstorm these things with and really think through it. Because I think there are ways to support the movement without necessarily putting it out there. And that's a hard stance to take. A lot of people would say I'm wrong about that if you're quiet, you're not supporting it. But I think in the business ecosystem, the truth is there's a lot of factors to consider that are different than taking a stand as a person. And so I think you have to really think through that. And I think that's fair that everyone has the right and the chance to do that. And then if you do take a stand, be willing to back it up. So we participated at KWSM. I'll tell you what we did. We participated in Blackout Tuesday. We did not post social media for that. We advised many of our clients to participate. We did not advise all of our clients to participate, right? There are some clients that didn't have a US only audience or weren't in a position where that would be particularly meaningful for their audience. And so there wasn't as big a call to action for them to participate. And so we advised against it. So I really do think it's an individual choice and big decisions you have to make, but talk about it ahead of time. Have a stance on that with your leadership team, with your company decision makers, so that you know how you will respond when things change, because they will. Fair enough?
Fair. All right.
Thank you guys for that answer. All right, we've got another question here. It says, back in March, we made a company marketing shift with expectations that all of this might end soon. But since that's not the case, what marketing changes should we put in place for the rest of the year?
So I think we've already talked about a lot of them, right? I think you need to look at your website, make sure that it's going to perform properly. You need to look at how are you generating leads in business now? Has it changed, right? Are all the things that used to work for you still viable, or are they not? A lot of our business comes from referrals and networking. That's not the same as it used to be. Maybe you rely on trade shows. Many of our clients did. That's not the same. So I think it's really looking at how do you recreate those activities online in a digital way. Maybe it's reaching out more often on LinkedIn. Maybe it's holding webinars instead of speaking engagements or in-person meetings. Maybe it's creating content like an ebook or a video course so you can share your expertise with people you normally network with, who you're connected to but aren't seeing normally now or regularly now. I think you have to look at all of that. I also think that there's a cadence to it, right? You have to look into how frequently should you be communicating. There is a balance between sharing political or COVID or breaking news information and your normal marketing, your business, your company, your services, products. And that's become a little skewed. It used to be all in this camp and we could ignore a lot of the stuff that was going on in our world. Now that stuff has become hard to ignore. And so I think you need to talk internally about what's the balance? How much are we responding to what's happening? Because I don't think you can ignore it. You have to respond in some way. And how much are we continuing to push our products and services and talk about our company? And there's, maybe it's not 50-50, maybe it's 60-40, maybe it's 40-60. There are different answers depending on where your audience is in all of this, but you really need to have those discussions internally.
Yeah, I also think, you've got enough time now since if you adjusted in March, it's been 4 months, to look at the data and to see, did the things that you changed, were they effective? Are they being effective? Are you starting to see them being effective? Or have they failed? And you can be at a point now where you can probably have a little bit more perspective on even though things are still changing quickly, on what the future is going to look like. And can you adapt some of the things you were doing previously to what you're doing now in order to keep, doing better again? But I think ultimately it comes down to being creative. And in a time right now where everything's changing, if you can find a creative solution to marketing your business, then now is the best time to do that, because it's going to, like I said earlier, consumers are changing, people that are buying are changing. And if you can get in front of them the right way, then I think it's a great time to do that.
One more tactical tip that we talked about a little earlier, email marketing, really strong right now. So if you have an email list, if you can gather an email list, some sort of nurturing campaign, drip campaign, which is a series of emails meant to be seen one after the other, maybe a week, 10 days apart. If you can come up with some pushes like that around certain aspects of your business, now would be a good time to put something like that into practice. And then we talked about advertising. Really think about your advertising strategy. If you don't need to be worried about the boycott in your particular business, or because your business is really too small to be on people's radar for that, now's a good time to advertise. So think through where the opportunities are that there may be a vacuum you could take advantage of.
Great, thank you. And that actually kind of leads into our next question. So you guys addressed things that you should be implementing right now, but someone wants to know, are there certain practices people should stop implementing or platforms that they should stay away from during this time?
Well, Facebook, if you're concerned about the boycott, right? Facebook and Instagram, if you don't want to participate in that. And you guys, if you want to know more about the boycott, there's a blog on our website you can read, or you could probably Google it. It's mostly big brands participating, big consumer companies. And so you may not need to be as concerned about that, but it's good to be aware of. I would say it's more of an approach. You need to avoid the my company first approach, right? It's not all about you during this time. And a lot of consumers are reevaluating a lot of things during this time, right? They've had some white space. They've been able to hunker down at home and think through some things. It's not a good time to do the hard sales push. If you're coming across as too aggressive or too salesy in your social media or even in ads or in your email marketing, that's a big turnoff right now. It is largely about education and adding value right now. We talked about you have to know where your audience is and how they're being affected. How can you add value to what they're struggling with right now? That is the absolute best way to market in this environment. And I think for the foreseeable future, because it's going to be a long time before it's business as usual or things get back to really normal. If this is the new environment, it's much more about community, about helping, and about inclusiveness and connectedness. I mean, you see that. We joke, we have a bunch of dogs, and we joke that we take them out for walks every evening, and every dog in the neighborhood is out on a walk because people are stuck at home, right? But we've started talking to neighbors that we hadn't talked to before, and you wave to people that you wouldn't have before. And that spirit has really developed during this quarantine period and really carries over into marketing. You'll see this if you do Hulu or Netflix, you're watching TV, a lot of the TV commercials are really playing on that spirit, right? There's a Coke one, there's some AT&T or Verizon or something, some kind of connected one that's really playing on, we're a family and we all need to take care of each other and we're in the same boat. And that kind of sentiment is really effective in communications right now because people are really feeling that in their own lives and wanting that from the brands they're connected to. They don't want to be sold. They want to feel like we are all in this together and you get me. So the more you can demonstrate that you get your target audience, that will go a long way.
Yeah, and I think that if you're marketing something specific to coronavirus or COVID-19, you just have to be really careful with any kind of advertising because basically all the advertising platforms have, if you've got coronavirus or COVID-19 or something in any of the ads, it's almost always going to get denied or declined. And that's just because they're trying to eliminate businesses making money off of the pandemic, basically.
Right.
So there's a lot of scams and stuff that happen because of that. And so just keep that in mind if you're trying to market something, a service or a product specifically for COVID-19 or coronavirus, even if it's seemingly helpful or harmless. The advertising platforms right now are just pretty much putting 100% kibosh on them. So
yeah, we have a client that sells supplements, vitamins, and they sell immunity supplements that would maybe help during this time, but we can't market around the pandemic because you aren't allowed to say those things. That's why this webinar is called Changing Times. See how we did that? Instead of COVID-19 or anything else. But yeah, Stephen's right. Tactically, you got to stay away from that. Even press releases, the press release distribution services right now are not releasing much that has that in the name. You got to stay away from it.
All right, great. Thank you. Our next question is a little bit different. It says, how should I be reaching my customers? What is the most effective way to get in front of them at this time?
I think email.
Yeah, I think if you've got their email address, that seems to be the most effective one. You think about social media and, how many times a day do you check social media, right? I don't know, maybe it's like once a day, maybe it's 10 times a day, yeah. Right? Maybe on the high end, it's 20 times a day. Now just think about how much time you spend checking your email every day. And if you're like me, it's 12 to 14 hours a day I'm on my email. And so the ability to get in front of someone is probably going to be higher if you're sending them an email than by posting onto social media. If you want a direct communication and almost like a guarantee that you're going to hit someone.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily only about how many times you check it. It's about the algorithms too. When you post on social media, not everybody sees that post, right? You're hitting a very small, less than 10% of your fan base with each one of those posts. Whereas an email is a much more proactive, direct communication, so you have a better chance of getting in. And again, Stephen loves the data. Go back to the data and look at your open rates on your email marketing. Are you reaching people? And if not, tweak that messaging so that you get more opens. I think LinkedIn can be effective right now if you're sending direct messages on LinkedIn, but please don't sell anything. You've got to use that as a way to stay connected. Maybe you use that more with your referral partners or with people you used to network with that you're not seeing, just to check in with them. I think staying top of mind using things like LinkedIn messaging is really important with your network and the people that can send you business.
Yeah. I also think that creating really good pieces of content on your website and getting them, sharing those on social media, but then optimizing it really well for search is a great way, because if it's timely and if it's effective and if it's got the content that people are looking for, then people are going to be able to find that.
And SEO too. You really want to look at your SEO, right? Because search traffic is rebounding, and if you can position yourself, especially if you've got a service you pivoted into during this time, like telemedicine or anything, those things are much more popular than they used to be. There's a lot of opportunity to rank for those things and to get ahead of the competition by getting search traffic.
Yeah, and lastly, I think that if you look at your social media engagement from before this happened, if you're a company that, let's say, you focus primarily on Instagram and that's where you built your audience was just on Instagram, then people are probably going to be checking your Instagram and following you there and looking for updates. So if that was your main point of communication, don't stop that. Keep that going, right? Because people are already queued in. They're already looking for that. They're probably searching. They're probably looking for more information about what you're talking about. So if you had something that was working before, don't just abandon that. Like, by all means, keep that working and keep those lines of communication open. But if you didn't have anything before, it's going to be tough to sort of break through the noise a little bit.
This is about tweaking things, not throwing out entirely, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Our next question is a little bit more geared towards COVID-19. So they said, how do you approach the subject of COVID-19 in your marketing? And also, how do you communicate safety protocols and incorporate them into your content?
I think we should answer the second part first. So safety protocols are obviously really important for a lot of businesses right now and for a lot of consumers as well. So I think that needs to be front and center. If you have a business that has to have safety protocols in place, put a banner on your website, create a page on your website with a button that links to it from the home page, something like that, where you are spelling out exactly what you're doing. We have retail clients that are just starting to reopen, and the safety protocols are really important as what hours are we going to be open? Is it appointment only, or is it open to the public? Are there limited numbers of people in the store? But also, what are you doing to clean the store between guests? What are you doing to keep the guests safe? Are there masks required? That's important in retail, restaurants, gyms, hospitality, any brick and mortar place. So the website's the first place. Second, you've got outbound channels, you've got social media, and you've got email marketing. These are important places to proactively communicate that. Don't count on everyone checking your website, because what happens is if you proactively communicate, you may convince somebody to come see you that wasn't thinking about it before, but now that they know that you're a safer environment, they might be interested. So e-blasts for sure, social media posts. And then I'm a big fan too of signage in the actual retail space, in the actual brick and mortar location. Don't assume that just because people are coming to visit you, they know what you're doing to stay safe or to keep them safe. So posters on the wall, little pop-ups at the cash register or at the welcome desk, or whatever that is in your business, and really training your employees to set a good example, right? Wearing their masks, wearing gloves if that's a thing, taking temperatures. I'll tell you a bad story. This is not one of our clients, but I saw an ad on Facebook of a gym, and the gym was trying to get people to come back to work out there. And it said, safety protocols in place, we will take care of you. And there's a picture of staff people in the creative of the ad. And the staff people didn't have their masks over their noses. It just was like right here. And I was like, oh, dude, I'm not trusting you to take care of me. You can't even get your employees to wear their masks right.
Yeah.
Right. And so it had the opposite effect for me as a consumer. I missed the gym and I was not going there.
That's pretty funny.
It is pretty funny. But that's important, right? If you're going to have images on your social media, even if you're not talking about safety protocols, but if you're going to have images, make sure that you are following the safety protocols in the images you post of your team. We are doing video shoots right now, and they have to be socially distanced, and my staff has to wear masks and gloves and everything. And I always ask them for behind the scenes of the video shoot to post on Instagram. And you better believe they have masks and gloves on in those pictures. It's very important that we are communicating that we're following these protocols, among ourselves. And so I think All of those things are important, just to set an environment where this is a priority for your business and you're communicating that to your audience.
I agree.
Okay, there was a first part of that question that I may have forgotten.
How should we be communicating about coronavirus in our marketing?
Oh, in our marketing, not just safety protocols. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So we've covered this a little bit. I think it's not time to ignore it completely yet. It's not so far in the background. This is still an active thing people are really talking about. But I don't think it has to be the subject of every post where it was more frequent at the beginning of all of this, right? I think the way you communicate now is how the changes in what's happening in the world, the spikes, the openings, the closings, that sort of thing, are affecting your audience and your business, right? Nobody needs a primer on coronavirus or how we catch it or that masks are a good idea. Those things are all kind of common knowledge at this point. Nobody needs to be reminded we're in a pandemic. That can actually have the opposite effect because people are tired of being reminded we're in a pandemic. But you do still have to communicate those things in relation to how it affects your business and how it affects your audience. So, if you're a business that opened and then is closing again, you do need to make posts about that. What are you going to use this time that you're closed to do? Are you cleaning? Are you putting extra protocols in place? Are you developing new programs that will help you serve them better when you open again? Are you rethinking, a system in your business? I think those things are all interesting and engaging and valuable to your audience. And so I would talk about them. For us, the way coronavirus affects our people is that our audience, they need to re-strategize for their business. And so we've been busy trying to make new offerings that help them do that and are cost effective and can help businesses rebound from all of this. So those are things we talk about in our marketing, like this webinar, right? And so I think getting the information out that you are still very much invested in this, involved, and you're thinking about them and how to help them through this time.
Perfect, thank you. Another question that we had was, how do I promote webinars? If I don't have a following, how do I go about getting people to come to my webinar?
Okay, so we're big fans of webinars. We've been doing them for a lot of our clients. It's really popular right now. A lot of people online, viewing education online is really hot. Let's see, we're gonna sound like a broken record, but ways to promote your webinar. Social media posts, events, like an event listing on Facebook and LinkedIn. Many of you found out about this webinar that way. And one of the great things about those is if you set up an event for your business on Facebook or LinkedIn, you can ask not only yourself, but your team to go through and invite people that they're connected to on LinkedIn and Facebook. So it can really exponentially increase your exposure to people that way. You can also ask your team to share that event on their personal social media, their Facebook, their LinkedIn. One of the things we like to do is work with referral partners, people in similar but not competitive services, and say, hey, do you have webinars? We'll promote them on our social media if you'll promote ours on yours. We have a good friend who does podcasts, and we are promoting his workshop on how to do a podcast, and he's promoting our webinars on how to pivot your marketing. So that's helped us reach a whole new audience. Beyond social media, email marketing for sure. Making a page on your website where not only can you sign up to participate in the webinar, but also after this webinar, we will put this content on our website so people can watch it from there. So that's a way to extend the reach of it afterwards. I think also we put it on YouTube. We'll put this video on YouTube. We can reach more people.
Yeah, I think that you can't, another thing, I agree with all that. I think in addition, you can't underestimate just reaching out to people that you know. So I think,
the old-fashioned way?
The old-fashioned way, yeah, because everyone has a following. I mean, like a following is such a social media specific thing. So maybe you have no presence on social media, but you certainly know a lot of people. So reach out to the people you think would benefit from it, or reach out to the people who maybe wouldn't benefit from it and say, hey, do you know anyone, right? Like a referral partner to say, do you know anyone who might benefit from this? Also, a lot of like associations or chambers of commerce or things like that are looking for things to promote and looking for ways to help, content to help their members because those are such traditionally in-person events, and a lot of them I've seen are struggling with how to best go about doing that. And so that might be a great way to get in front of a set of new people, is just go to your local chamber of commerce, say, hey, I'm putting on this webinar. It's about XYZ. Do you think that your members might be interested? And they might say, yeah, I'll send out an email about it to our members and see what they get. So I think that there's a good opportunity there.
Yeah, I like that.
Great. We've got a couple more questions here. This one says, what are some marketing tactics for owners of brick and mortar businesses when it's uncertain whether we will stay open or closed?
Well, so from a communication standpoint, it's important to be really proactive about your communication if you're a brick and mortar, right? Because it is open and then it's closed, and then it's open and then it's open but only outside now, right?
No one knows.
And now you just put your entire restaurant out in the middle of the street and it's all good. And so there's, communicating about those changes, like we said, on your website, all of that type of stuff. I think from getting out in front and marketing and getting more people in there, you have to lead with what is the benefit of someone if they're going to go into that store, right? Versus because you have to. It's now no longer is anyone just going to be like walking by necessarily. You're going to have to get them to go in there. And what we've seen is sort of a hybrid of brick and mortars that are getting their online store, like their websites, and turning their brick and mortar stores into an online store, and having that as a separate way for people to buy, or utilizing some kind of online platform if you don't have a full website built out to be able to sell things online, and then people can just come and pick them up. And so think about those types of strategies. How can you take the sales process and make it as easy and seamless as possible? And why would someone want to come into your store, and what's the benefit of doing that, or into your restaurant? So those are some things that you should be thinking about.
Well, I think it's good old-fashioned promotions too, right? I mean, is this the time to, I know you may be hurting for revenue, but is it the time to run a special or a discount or something over the top that people can't normally get at your place? Like, this is a good time to be thinking. Stephen talked about being creative earlier. It's a good time to be thinking outside the box about what can you offer. A lot of our clients are offering donations to a nonprofit with every dollar that's spent, or buy one get one at 50% off, or a famous product that they had, or a popular product they had 3 months ago that was out of stock, they're bringing it back because it was engaging to people. Any kind of outside the box way to get people in. I also think, you said nobody's going to be walking by, and that's largely true, but I don't underestimate the value of having signage out on the sidewalk and balloons tied to your door and things that get people's attention, because I think we're looking for bright spots, like spots of differentiation in this environment. You walk around your neighborhood every day and it looks the same, and you're going to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if you can make a little splash with your business and call attention to it, I think that is a good way to get noticed.
Yeah, I agree with that, because people might not be walking by, but they might be driving by. And there's so many businesses that have closed or temporarily closed or whatever, that if it's very clear that you're open and here's how you can shop with us, we are open, or go online, or call this number, or, if it's a restaurant, order from, Uber Eats or whatever it is, then those are great ways to just really loudly tell everyone that's even driving by or passing by that you are open, and here's how we're doing business now.
Yeah, we've had a lot of restaurants in our neighborhood go to takeout only, but they issue a special menu every Wednesday, and it's for takeout on Friday night. And you text and you say, oh, I'll order these things. And then we swing by on Friday night and we pick up our little picnic basket and it has all the things in it. So look for ways that, maybe people aren't comfortable coming out to your place to shop or to eat, but how can you still create a special experience that they then can take home? Some of our retail stores are doing personal shopping where they used to just be open for browsing. How can you assign a personal shopper to somebody and make them feel really cared for and really safe in that experience? It's making the retail experience, the brick and mortar experience, more unique, more special than it used to be. And setting yourself apart from all the people that are just opening their doors and hoping people are going to come.
Yeah.
Great. And it looks like, unless we get any more, this might be our last question. This one says, should I just pare down and focus on one channel and increase communication, or focus on that channel instead of trying to maintain communication on multiple channels?
Mm-hmm. This is a great question, right?
Are we going to disagree?
We might.
Tell me what you think.
Well, I think it depends. It depends on where you work. Because I'm always a fan, and I think you'll agree with me on this.
We'll see.
To start with one thing and do it really well before you move on to adding additional things.
I do agree with that. I do agree with that, yeah.
You agree with that. However, if you have multiple channels set up already that you've been communicating or posting on, don't abandon those things, unless you do it strategically to say, I'm not going to be posting here, check me out I'm not posting on Instagram and LinkedIn or whatever anymore, only on Facebook. So you put a final post there that says, talk to me here or find us here, and then they can go check that out.
Yeah, but I disagree with that strategy. Okay, so I'm with you that don't abandon things, right? We talked about that. This is not the time to call things off. Keep doing what you were doing, add or tweak new things.
Yeah.
I think you have to have a multi-channel approach because you never know where people are getting their information these days, where they're trying to connect. You don't want to limit your chances of reaching somebody. So I do think, we sell integrated digital marketing strategies because typically one channel in a vacuum is not effective. You can't just market your business on Facebook and expect to have wild success, right? It relies on website and email and ads and SEO and all of these things that work together.
Yep.
But I'll tell you what I'm pushing back on is the strategy of, hey, I'm not going to post anymore. Now follow me over here. I think that telegraphs a message you may not want to send for your business, that maybe you're struggling more than you let on, or maybe you're disengaged or, really flailing around. I don't think it seems like you've got this. And I think it's really important in this day and age, this time that we're in, to make it look like you got this. You're pivoting, you're serving your clients, things are hard. They're hard for all of us. Everybody's struggling behind the scenes. But there's a meme on Facebook going around that says, you ask people how they're doing and they go, yeah, I'm hanging in there. And what that really means is I'm falling apart and this is horrible and it's stressful and I'm hanging in there. But we say to each other, no, I got this. And I think it's important as a business that you want to telegraph, I got this. We were strong before, we'll be strong again. We're going to pivot during this time. And I don't think it sends the right message to be pulling back and saying, well, I just can't get this one done right now. I'm going to go over here.
Yeah.
That's probably not strong.
I agree with that 100%. And I think that if you, we even said this before all of this, right? Because if you've got a social media channel that you haven't posted on in a month or 2 months or, years, sometimes you look at these things, then my first question, even if the website is up and these other, other elements of the business seem like they're active, my first question is, are these guys still in business? And if they are still in business, how active are they at this current business? Because it seems like they were trying for a little bit and now they've stopped. And especially right now, if you haven't posted something on any channel that you used to be posting on, and it's been a few weeks, the first thing people are going to think is that you went out of business.
Right, in this climate. And it affects your credibility. Even if you're still in business, if you can't work hard at your own stuff, how hard are you going to work for your clients? And that may not be fair, but that's the impression it gives. And so I would say you keep putting out your stuff, producing content, trying to reach people across all the channels, and then circling, full circle, back to the data Stephen brought up at the beginning of the webinar to see what's working and what's not, and put a little more energy into the ones that are working better than others. But be prepared, things are changing quickly, and what didn't work last week may work better next week. So you want to keep your hand in everything so that you can have that agile marketing, see, truly full circle, the agile marketing, and continue to tweak to come with your, tweak your strategy where people are going to find it. All right, we're just a few minutes before 1 o'clock. Savannah, we're going to cut off the questions. If we have any other ones, you're welcome to email us anytime, you guys. It's Katie or Stephen at KWSMdigital.com. Love to answer them for you. But wanted to tell you about 2 things we have coming up. The first is our Video Studio Day. This is our most cost-effective way to make video for your business. It's a 30-minute slot where you're going to create 4 videos for social media and websites. Totally social distanced, 1 person in the building at a time. My staff will be wearing masks and gloves. And that's a cost-effective thing. It's $450 for all 4 videos. It's coming up August 6th, and there's more information on our website. And then our social media boot camp is the class we teach 3 times a year, every year. You'll learn Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. It's every Friday in August. There's a 3-hour class on each one of those channels. It's from 9 to noon Friday mornings. We're going to do it over webinar. Fully interactive, work on your channels in class, ask questions of the presenter live, and you get all unlimited email and Facebook group support afterwards as you launch your marketing plan on those channels. So if there's a channel you haven't been using during this time and you want to brush up or learn to use it, that's a great resource for you. And there's information on that on our website as well. So please reach out. We really want to help you. We love what we do. We love helping business owners. And this is a time when a lot of us need a lot of help. And if we can be a resource for you, we're happy to do it. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you had a good lunchtime, and we will talk to you again soon.